Hello and welcome to Missing and Tattooed. It's Season 1, Episode 6. For our first case, a mysteriously transferred pink slip and one missing man is the disappearance of Thomas Starkel. Also, a family desperate to find help for their son finally gets the correct diagnosis, only for him to vanish a short time later. It's a tragic case of Gordon Page Jr. Thomas Ray Starkel. Thomas Starkel was 19 years old when he disappeared from Palmdale, California on December 5, 1979. He was last seen leaving his girlfriend's apartment at approximately 10 p.m. Authorities believe he made it to his apartment but was never heard from again. 3 days after he was last seen, he was reported missing, but it took the police 3 more days before they finally went out to Thomas's apartment to investigate. By the time the police got there, Thomas's mother had cleaned her son's apartment, unfortunately erasing any evidence that the police might have been able to find. At the time of his disappearance, Thomas was driving a dark green Pontiac Firebird with blue-colored Nevada plates. His car was found 2 weeks later. The car was pulled over when it was driving from Nevada into California. A man named Craig Moore was driving the car. Thomas was not with him, although his jacket was found in the trunk of the car. Craig Moore had the pink slip to the car. It had been signed over to Craig Moore from Thomas. A recently fired handgun was found under the driver's seat. Craig Moore was arrested and thrown into jail for 2 weeks. The police interrogated him about where Thomas was, and he gave many conflicting stories. The police eventually had to release him due to lack of evidence connecting him to Thomas's disappearance, although he remains the prime suspect. I found a poem online that his girlfriend wrote 28 years after his disappearance. Here is a small piece of it. The moment I realized you were really gone, I prayed that they find you. Lord, please don't take them very long. The police, family, and friends were all searching for you, but as days turned to weeks, we didn't know what else to do. Slowly all the people seemed to fade, all away. All was left was a memory which you gave to me and our plans for the future that ended that day. When Thomas Starkel disappeared, he was 19 years old. He's 5 foot 6 inches tall and about 150 pounds. He has blonde hair and green eyes. He was last seen wearing a tan sweater, brown corduroy pants, a gold watch, and sneakers that were possibly 7.5s. If you've seen Thomas or have any information about his disappearance, please call Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department at 562-465-7816. There's also been a Facebook page set up to aid in the search for Thomas. It's at www.facebook.com/missingtomr.starkel. Gordon Thomas Page Jr. Gordon Page Jr. was 28 years old when he disappeared on the 27th of May, 1991 from Grand Rapids, Michigan. When Gordon was growing up, he was considered a big, slow, clumsy boy. Although he couldn't do simple addition and subtraction problems, he had a phenomenal memory, especially when it came to baseball. In June of 1981, Gordon graduated from high school. He began working at a local grocery store. He was a good worker but had trouble communicating with the customers. Even though his parents coached him on what he should say and do if he were approached by the customers, Gordon still had problems and was fired from his job. His parents could see that there was something wrong with Gordon, but they had no idea what. They eventually met with social workers to have their son's case evaluated. Gordon was diagnosed as schizophrenic, and it was recommended he be put in a group home. While he was in that group home, he was put on several drugs that put him through psychological and physical torment. He said he felt like cats were scratching inside of his head. In September 1989, his family moved to Florida. That spring, Gordon had been accepted into another Grand Rapids group home, so he didn't go with his family. On November 29, 1989, a workman left his truck parked in the group home driveway, and although he was heavily medicated, Gordon took the pickup truck and got into an accident. Later, he told his parents that all he wanted to do was to visit his brother who was in college in Texas. After that incident, he was taken out of the group home and was put into the county hospital, where he was evaluated by psychiatric social worker Bill Arnold. He determined that Gordon was not suffering from schizophrenia, but was actually a highly functioning autistic. His parents then found a new home in Grand Rapids that specialized in autism, the Cascade Foster Home foster care home on Craft Avenue and 60th Street in Grand Rapids, Michigan, but no visitors were allowed for 2 months. Gordon Sr. waited 2 months before he was finally able to see his son. When Gordon Sr. prepared to return to Florida on May 21, 1991, he shared an emotional goodbye with his son. He was in his van saying goodbye when Gordon tried to open the door so that he could climb into the van. The door was locked and his father told him he had to stay at the home and that he couldn't come with him. Gordon Page Sr. has said he regrets that decision to this day and wishes he would have just let Gordon into the van and taken him to Florida. On May 27th, only 6 days later, an orderly discovered during a midnight check that Gordon had disappeared. It was found that he had escaped through a window. An hour later, firemen saw a man resembling Gordon hitchhiking along Interstate 96 in Grand Rapids shortly after he disappeared from his residence. An intense search turned up no leads. Part of a baseball collection was discovered under an overpass on Interstate 96 approximately 6 weeks later. The cards were located near ramps leading to Detroit, Michigan, and Chicago, Illinois. 3 of the cards had been separated from the rest of the collection. The cards were those of Page's favorite players, Robin Yount, Paul Moultier, and Eddie Murray. It is possible that the collection belonged to Gordon. His hobbies includes collecting sports cards, shopping at sports memorabilia, music and antique stores, playing baseball and basketball, and swimming. Gordon may collect empty bottles or cans along roadsides for cash. He may be working with migrant workers or employed as a farmhand. Gordon may linger around automobile dealerships or tent and campsites. He generally keeps to himself or stays on the fringes of crowds. It is possible that Gordon may have been admitted to a hospital as an unidentified patient due to his medical conditions. At the time of his disappearance, Gordon was 28 years old. He was 6'3" and about 175 pounds. He has wavy reddish-brown hair and blue eyes. Gordon's hair has a mix of gray through it. His facial hair only grows underneath his nose and on his chin. Gordon has a prominent Adam's apple. He turns his eyes when crossing the street, but he does not turn his head. He has a tan birthmark on the side of his body. He has a scar under his chin. Gordon also has a surgical scar on his pubic area from operation to repair an undescended testicle during his childhood. He has a small white-colored acne scar on his back. Gordon has a large-sized brown mole on one of his inner legs. He also has several white discolorations on his teeth. Gordon is autistic and does not communicate well with people as a result. He was wearing a t-shirt and jeans at the time that he was last seen. Gordon was not carrying any identification or cash at the time. If you see Gordon Page Jr. have any information on what might have happened to him, please call Kent County Sheriff's Office, Captain Krojewski, 616-336-3133. There's also a Facebook page dedicated to finding him, www.facebook.com/pages/whereisgordy. Also, if you'd like to learn more about Gordon's case, you can go to the official Unsolved Mysteries webpage because his case was featured on Unsolved Mysteries. It's at www.unsolved.com. If you like this podcast, you might consider liking us on Facebook. It's www.facebook.com/missingandtattooed. We also have a YouTube channel. It's www.youtube.com/user/missingandtattooed. Thank you so much for listening.